After moving my home studio to a commercial location, I realized there are a lot of things I could have done differently in my home studio to make it sound so much better right away. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, this is David at SourceTrack Studio, and today we're going to be talking about a few things that you can do in your home studio today that will make a massive difference. The stuff we're talking about today comes from me working in my home studio for 7 years and then moving to this commercial location and realizing the pitfalls that come from working in a home studio. Eventually, I'll probably do a video on how I set up the commercial studio and maybe just some kind of studio tour, but it's more important for me to share this knowledge with you so you can help improve your home studio first. Before we get started, don't forget your free vocal tracking cheat sheet down in the description box below. And if you need help with EQ or vocal production in your home studio, you can sign up for the Home Studio Professionals EQ Masterclass and Complete Vocal Production. Complete Vocal Production was filmed in my home studio to show you that you can make pro tracks in bedroom studios. I go through the entire process of tracking, editing, and mixing twice, once with my favorite plugins and once with stock plugins to show you that you already have the tools you need to make great records. Without further delay, let's get started. Now, the number one thing I should have done from the very beginning is hire a mastering engineer. Mastering is the final step before being able to release your product, and I was doing it all in my home studio. I was tracking, I was editing, I was mixing, and I was mastering. When you hire a separate mastering engineer, you get someone with a fresh perspective, a fresh set of ears on your project. They can listen to where it's at and know where it needs to go to translate well on all kinds of speaker systems. The guy I use for mastering, I'm pretty sure has a speaker system that's about the same price as my entire studio. He can hear stuff that I just cannot reproduce on my system. So when we get that master back, I know that whatever we are releasing has gone through quality control and it is going to be the highest quality product it can be. But the best part about hiring a mastering engineer is that when you get that master back and you take a listen to it, you can hear a few differences of things that you were missing in your mix. I still remember the first time I got a master back from this mastering engineer. I was kind of blown away. I thought my mix was really good when I sent it off and I was really proud of it. But when I heard his master, he had filled in the holes that I left in the mix that I didn't even notice were there. So getting a mastering engineer is going to improve your mixes because you can realize where your shortcomings are and what you can do to make the mix better before you send it off. And conveniently, that leads me to my next point. The speakers I have, my mains, they're those Eve Audio SC207s. They are phenomenal speakers. But for the control room that I was in, these are just too big. They reproduced so much low end. I think they get down to like 44 hertz or something like that. And it's just too much for that small room I was in, especially if I was mixing with the door closed, because that bass would build up all around the room and then muddy up my perception of my mix. So I thought it was a lot more full and I thought it was a lot bigger sounding than it really was. And I take it somewhere else and it sounds thin and not boomy enough. And the mixes just lacked that power. So what I really should have gotten was probably the Eve SC205s. Those are still the same mid-range, they still sound phenomenal, they just don't reproduce as much low end, so it would make the EQ curve of my room much flatter and much more accurate. So as a quick recap, number one, get a mastering engineer. That is the best thing he will ever do as a mix engineer or producer, someone else to just finalize the project, make your mix sound the best it can be, and just lift it up to a pro level. Number two is get speakers appropriate for the room size that you have. If you get speakers that are way too big, like I see people getting 8-inch speakers all the time and they were in a room smaller than what I was in, yeah, it sounds cool and boomy, but only in that room. If you take your mix anywhere else, it's not going to translate as well. So focus on speakers with a good mid-range. That's why I got those NS10s, or even the more budget-friendly JBL 305P Mark II. If I were starting over and I had to get a brand new speaker system and I didn't have a whole lot of money to spend on speakers, I would get the JBLs in a heartbeat. Before we get to number three, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe down below for more content like this. And number three, something I didn't even realize was an issue until I moved out of that space, is carpeted floors. Now, I thought it was a good thing at first because carpeted floors soaked up some sound and they deadened the room, and I could just add reverb and whatever I needed to, and it would cover up those room reflections. The problem with carpeted floors is that they only soak up the high end. It's not a thick material like these Prime Acoustic absorption panels. Carpet is very thin and it only stops the high end from reflecting. It's just like getting those cheap packing foam panels and slapping them on your wall. Now, why is that bad for mixing? because if your high end is getting soaked up by these panels or by carpet, you're not hearing the high end as much, so you think you need to compensate for it and add a bunch of high end to your tracks. I was boosting 8K, 10K, a lot on everything. In my mix room, I thought it was great because the carpet was soaking all that up and it sounded so crisp and clean in there. But when I brought my mixes out to the car or any other speaker system, they were super bright, super harsh, and too airy, and didn't have any clarity to them. And it took me until now, being in a room with reflective floors, to understand that carpeted floors are really a terrible thing for your mixes. So obviously you can't be in like an echo chamber. Try to find some kind of reflective surface that you can put on the floor to liven up the speakers a little bit and let them move, and then kill the reflections with good paneling, a rug, a couch, whatever you have to do. Furniture is a great bass trap and diffusion panel. But this hard flooring in here did more to help my mixes than any speakers could have, than any plugin could have. I get so much more clarity now in this room. One, because it's bigger, but two, because I can actually hear the high end. It's not getting soaked up by all of my carpeting. Those are three really big things I would have done differently in my home studio had I known that that would make a big difference. If you've already got these three things taken care of and just want to make your productions much better, don't forget that free vocal tracking cheat sheet and the EQ Masterclass and complete vocal production courses down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.